we're going to have our students who are in the room introduce themselves and say hello. And then if we have folks online, is it possible for them to introduce themselves, Angus, or is that too difficult technically?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm so sorry for our online contingent, but we will be able to take your questions.
Yes.
Absolutely. So you'll just be able to introduce yourself when you ask a question. So for folks in the room, could you just say, hi, I am Kate, and I am a 20-something, and I'm majoring in something else. And I have an area of interest that is this. That would be great. So Kate's going to kick us off.
Hi, everyone. Thanks you guys for being on the panel. My name's Kate. I'm a 25 from Singapore, majoring in environmental studies. And my main kind of career options right now are sustainability communications and journalism.
Hi, I'm Maya. I'm a 24 from Hong Kong and New York City, and I'm majoring in environmental studies and history. And I'd say my sort of general career interests are to do something related to environment and sustainability, but TBD.
Hi, I'm Gannon. I'm a 25 from outside of Seattle. I'm an electrical engineering major, and I'm here today because I'm trying to figure out what I'm interested in focus-wise. So
cool. Hi, I'm Grace. I'm a 26. I'm not sure what I want to major in yet, but I'm thinking ENVS, and also just came in to like learn more about the environment and energy.
Hi, I'm Bill. I'm a 26, planning on majoring in computer science and quantitative social science with an environmental studies focus. I'm here to learn more about like clean energy fields and like how that can be applicable to, say, engineering or computer science, like the STEM fields.
Awesome. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Angus. I'm not a student. I'm a staff member here at the Irving Institute. I'm the experiential learning coordinator. I help out with all of our undergraduate educational programs. It's great to see all of y'all here.
Hi, I'm Grace. I'm a 24, majoring in environmental earth science and sort of just like broadly interested in renewable energy and the energy transition.
We have some folks on the side of the room who you can't see right now.
Hi, I'm Wendell. I'm a 23. I'm majoring in computer science and engineering sciences, and I don't quite know what I want to do. So that's why I'm here.
Good place.
Hi, I'm Nick. I'm a 23. I'm majoring in QSS, and my interests are pretty broad in the clean energy space, but doing an internship this summer in mobility. So.
Nice.
Well, hi, my name is Noah. I'm a 23. Post-grad, I am interested in doing something in the green startup space, particularly in the energy utilization category.
Fantastic. So there you have it, folks. We may have a few others trickling in. I don't get to introduce you all other than to say that these are some of our rock stars from the last few years since the Irving Institute was launched 5 years ago. We have long, lovely histories with all of these wonderful alumni, and I'm really thrilled to see this group. And I don't want to be in the way of you hearing what they have to say. So Jordan, I'm going to hand it over to you. Jordan is the founder, one of the founders of the Dartmouth Energy Alliance, which is the student club. We worked long and hard his senior year to figure out how to put that thing forward. Max then took over for him. And so you have veterans of energy student leadership here at Dartmouth on this panel. And Jordan has been through some really interesting career pathways over the last several years and is on his way back to the Upper Valley to study at Tuck. So this too is a future that could be possible for you. Jordan, with that, please take it away. And thank you so much, everybody, for being here tonight.
Thank you. Yeah, it's really great to see all of you in the Irving Institute. I'm jealous that you're there and that I'm not. So enjoy the Irving Institute building as much as you can. I'm not going to take up too much of the mic tonight. Super excited to have friends and fellow peers and others who I actually haven't met on the panel. So I'm really excited to hear what some friends have been up to and your news stories for those of you that I don't know as well. So I'll just briefly say that, I've gone through a lot of really interesting conversations and panels in the energy space. And I think that some of the most helpful panels were or conversations we're hearing from younger alumni. So I think that the panelists here are going to give you really awesome advice. Listen very closely, ask any questions that you have. I wish that, I had this sort of panel for me as a student. So it's going to be really great that you have this opportunity to hear from all of them and hear the amazing things that they're working on in the energy and the climate space. So with that said, I want to open up by asking each of the panelists to share their name, their major when they're at Dartmouth, and minor if they'd like, their current position and company, their favorite place to study on campus, and then in one sentence, please share, what does Earth Day mean to you? And I will put that in the chat in case you need a reminder. Let's start with Max because he's right next to me on the Zoom screen.
Awesome. Yeah, as Jordan said, excited to hear what you guys have to say and meet new faces. Irving is an awesome place that I'm like pretty grateful to have existed during my time, and jealous that Jordan's gonna have the opportunity to go back. So I'll keep going down the list. I majored in energy engineering and did both my BA and BE. Currently, a strategy analyst at Accenture, which is a consulting company. Favorite place, I'd probably say senior year. I was with Eric and Mativi and the Irving Institute. We had like our own little nook, which was highly regarded, had an awesome view. It's just the left of where you guys are. And then what does Earth Day mean to me? I would say probably just being grateful for, the innovation that's been done to today, but also being like hard pressed to figure out solutions for the future to make an equitable solution. So I'll popcorn it off to TV.
Hey everyone, my name is Mativi Penkikana, class of 22. Great to be here. Before I say anything, I want to say Jordan, he was like actually someone I spoke to quite a lot when I was thinking about my careers, especially in the intersection of sort of energy and finance space. So I don't think he gave himself enough credit. But he did stuff like this for me. So I guess, so I was a economics and environmental sciences double major. I did my senior honors thesis in the ENVS department, and it was sponsored by the Irving Institute. And that was sort of a big feature of my senior year. I spent most of my senior winter and spring in the Irving Institute with Max and Eric. And obviously my favorite places to study is, the Irving Institute looking down Tugmore. It's like an amazing place. And I think before that, I liked the Roscoe Mural Room. And then with Earth Day, what does Earth Day mean to me? I think it's hard. It's quite hard. I was thinking about this earlier today, and the problem is I feel like we really haven't made enough progress towards our sustainability goals. So when I think of Earth Day or these COP climate when they meet and sort of talk about COP and whatever, I'm sort of quite disheartened that not enough is being done. So I guess Earth Day this year was sort of quite sad for me. I feel quite disappointed with where we're at. I'll pass it to Ellie.
Thanks, Stevie. Hi, everyone. I'm Ellie. I was a 22 as well and a government major. I now work at the Brattle Group based out of San Francisco, a few floors down or up from Max as we speak. And I am an energy research analyst. And Earth Day, I'd say the cynic in me also gets pretty disillusioned with it, mostly because it's sort of been co-opted by the big corporations and the influencers. But I also think it's important to remember its roots and how far we have come. So I think it was like instrumental in passing the Clean Air Act and getting enough popular support for some of the first big environmental legislation in the country. So I think it's a good reminder, but also should motivate us to do more. So yeah, thanks for coming out today. Excited to talk. Oh, I can pass it to Evie, or Evie, sorry.
Yeah, no, thanks, Ellie.
Yeah.
Hi, everyone. I'm Evie Bird. I graduated 2019 from Dartmouth. Miss it a lot. I was in Jordan's class. Great to see him again. I double majored in environmental studies and anthropology, and I currently work at a EV and charging infrastructure developer and financer called Inspiration Mobility, and I'm a senior associate on the fleet team. So I focus on the vehicle side of things. My favorite place to study on campus was probably Fairchild Library. You can get stuck up there pretty easily. And to me, Earth Day, similar sentiment to both to everyone so far, but I also like to remember that it's a good reminder of all the little things that you can do in your life. And I think that there's a lot of marketing and things around recycling and composting, things like that, that a lot of people don't do every day. So it's a good driver to help people remember those things and make their best effort. And I'll send it over to Eric.
Cool. Hi all. My name is Eric. I was a 21, so I did my BA in engineering sciences. And then I was a 22 for my BE, where I focused on electrical and computer engineering. Let's see. My current position, I work for a company called Voltis. They're a climate tech startup. And my specific position is I'm an analyst on the energy markets team. So I work with the MISO and the SPP markets, if you're familiar with the US electricity grid. Favorite place to study on campus? I want to say the third floor desk I had with Max and MoTB. I'm not sure if that's open to everyone though. And so a second choice would be, I would say College 101. Because you could eat lunch and then you could eat and work. So that was always fun. And last question, Earth Day. What does it mean to me? I guess it's just like a nice public reminder that Earth is like really precious and we should protect it and be mindful not to take everything for granted. And I think I'm the last one.
Yeah, thanks everyone. I will share as well. I'm Jordan Swett. I majored in environmental studies and I minored in development economics. I'm currently doing an internship or fellowship, I guess you could call it, at a climate tech VC fund called Fifth Wall. And my favorite place to study on campus was also Fairchild. It's my favorite place. I love the tower and just looking out at the woods when I was distracted from studying. Earth Day was just kind of another reminder to go outside and breathe the fresh air, make sure to appreciate what we have here. So I want to start kind of tactically and ask the panelists, for current students who are interested in pursuing a career in energy and climate, what classes, internships, or other experiences would you recommend to help prepare them for the industry?
I could start it off. I think in terms of experiences at Dartmouth, looking back, like the most informative were experiences where I was talking about their students and like learning from them. And I think what happened was a lot of classes like sparked my interest in certain categories. But where I really learned was like interacting, talking with students, going deeper into those topics, whether that was in like DA book club discussions or going out with the Irving Institute on like certain excursions, or like talking to professors after class and like learning about their experiences one-on-one. I felt like I got a lot out of that. And then in terms of like traditional classes, depending on what your major is, like in BS 12, I think I took that with Ellie and TV as well. Even though the readings were basically like a book, a class, which was impossible. I would still get like nuggets of information that I thought was useful. This is maybe one class that people wouldn't think about, but years 51, it was like a niche class within earth science based on mineralogy. And I thought it was super cool because just like making the connection between critical minerals and like what we actually need and like availability and like how they're mined, like how to look for them. I thought that was super useful. So I'll pass it off to maybe Ellie this time.
Yeah, I would agree that finding things that really spark an interest is really important. So even if you don't like retain everything, every little piece of information, but having that spark that you can then go follow through and read books and listen to podcasts on, I found super helpful to my development. So an example of that was like a research position with the Irving Institute, I think in sophomore year, where I started learning about regional transmission organizations and the whole kind of infrastructure that is running our grid in the country, which isn't really something you'd ever learn about in a typical class, but it really like made me start to think and research about it, and now I'm working on that exact stuff. So yeah, look for those things that kind of pique your interest. And then with classes that I found helpful, I would also say EMVS 12 was awesome. Can't stress that enough to look into that class. Just for the background it gives you in the energy system. And then I think it's engines 18 or 19, one of the engineering classes for non-majors like myself, with Steve Peterson on thinking in systems. It was pretty cool to like think in it in a whole new way and use some of the tools that he had himself developed. And then you can apply it to like basically anything in the energy world that you're interested in a final project. So I found that really cool and would recommend.
Yeah, I took that course too, actually. I think it was Engines 18, but really fun course.
Thanks. Yeah. You want to go next, Eric?
Yeah, I think one theme that Max and Ali touched upon was like a lot of the most useful experiences can be outside of class. I think in college, often there's like a thought that everything you learn will be in the classroom. But in terms of answering this question, I think I would echo both Max and Ellie and say that like my outside of the classroom experiences, I think were more like just as, if not more helpful. So like all of my energy background and interest came from Irving programming. And so when I was a freshman, I think that's when the Irving Institute was kicking off. And so I got a chance to be part of like a bunch of their pilot programs, pilot trips. I did like the Energy 101. I went on a couple of the energy immersion trips. And so I think these like outside of the classroom experiences that you have to like kind of pursue yourself based on your interests were the most helpful for me in terms of like figuring out what I want to do with my career and also learning more about the energy space. There are definitely courses I think that are really helpful that people have touched upon. And I think since I've left, there's been like a really strong energy curriculum built between different departments. And so like you're welcome to reach out and I can give you like a list of courses I thought was helpful, but I definitely would push you to explore things outside of class, such as Irving things, panels like these, the club DEA that Max and Jordan founded, and yeah, stuff like that. I'm not going to popcorn it, but if someone has thoughts,
Yeah,
please jump in.
I can jump in. Oh, sorry, TV. I was just gonna say so I played a sport at Dartmouth, and I felt that I didn't like one thing I kind of regret is not getting involved with those outside experiences outside the classroom, like different clubs and like I ended up doing the Energy 101 series, but in my senior spring, and I also joined there was a sustainability group my senior year, and those were things that I remember now. Like, honestly, I probably couldn't tell you which classes to take at this point. And they probably changed a little bit, but I definitely recommend like just getting looped into those things, because then you'll hear about stuff that's going on outside of Dartmouth, and you'll have in-depth conversation with your peers in a really open forum that you might not get in class because there's different types of pressures. So definitely recommend that. And then something I found really helpful at the end of my senior year, as I was looking for a job, Columbia hosted like a climate focused job fair. And it was, I think like after a formal something, and I really didn't want to go, but I went, and it was actually extremely helpful. And I ended up getting like a few job interviews from that. So if you're, on the edge, definitely recommend going. It's a fun day in New York with maybe classmates that you don't get to spend a lot of time with. So yeah.
So I guess with this, I don't think I ever sort of was told that, oh, this is the perfect class, or that, I planned, this class is gonna help my career or whatever. I don't think it's possible to sort of find the perfect class that will sort of answer these questions for you. How I sort of did it was, you look for topics that you're interested in. So I don't know, within ENVS, there's so many of them. And then when you take those classes, engage with them as much as possible. Engage with the professors, engage with the readings, engage with your fellow students. And within that, you sort of learn so much about what you're interested in. And ENVS 12, a few of us have talked about it. I think the beauty of that class was it was project-based work. And within the energy space, you got to choose what real life issue you wanted to focus on and approach it from a few different ways. And through that class, for example, most than others, I was like, okay, I really want to get involved with this issue. And the way ENVS 12 was set up was we had speakers like Jordan and a few other alumni now on the Irving Board of Advisors, who worked in sort of the energy field in different ways. And we got to hear from them and then engage with them sort of outside of the class. And I think that was a really sort of special class, which I, going into it, had no idea it was going to be that good. We sort of go into it sort of interested with the issue and sort of excited to engage. And I guess, sorry, I never, in my introduction, what I do is I work at Goldman Sachs in their natural resources team in the investment bank. So work with energy companies and renewable energy companies to sort of finance different things. And I got that internship large, with the help of some of the people I spoke to meeting in ENVS 12.
Any other classes or other suggestions before I move on?
I'll maybe say one last thing. I'll keep it short, but like research is a good way too. Early on to like understand the foundation, like basics of the topic.
I'll also say one more thing. I feel like the class itself doesn't totally matter if it has an open-ended research component. Like, go with something that you're interested in within the energy world, and then like that'll be something you can talk about in job interviews and like draw on later. And it shows you like taking initiative and being interested in it.
Yeah, my favorite learning, just to add on, was independent research. Just being able to work with a professor on a topic that they were working on or that I brought to them was really cool. So highly recommend that. Okay, based on some questions I've seen and what I've heard from the panelists, I want to just do a lightning round where we don't use any context or qualifiers, but just name your favorite podcasts related to energy and climate. And then any job boards that you would use to find an energy related internships. So let's start, Ellie.
My favorite podcast is probably The Catalyst with Shale Khan. And job boards, I can send something out later, but I'm not sure if I have any go-to links right now. But I will say, like, there's some cool women in energy spaces out there that I'm sure have like listings like that that I've definitely drawn on in the past. I think like New England has a cool one. So yeah.
Yeah, let's expand it, not just job boards, but like networks such as that too. That's great.
I can go. I would say my climate journey has a lot of content, but you can get some really quick, interesting, cool companies on there as well. So it's a good place to do some research. And the Clean Energy Leadership Institute has a small membership fee, but as a student, it's pretty cheap. And there's a great job board there. And they just have a ton of resources and materials. And the network there, even if you're not a part of it, like if you don't do the actual program, people are still really friendly if you know about it and want to talk to them.
I can go next. Podcast, there's one called The Interchange. I used to have Jigger Shaw, but I think he's left. But it's like a great way where they have conversations with like industry leaders and experts. I would listen to it when I'm doing my laundry on campus, and it would take about an hour. So just a nice way to get more exposure. Job boards, I can't think of a job board, but there's an email newsletter that I think Max introduced me to called Axios Generate. That gives you daily like 10-minute reads in your email about like the top 5 biggest headlines in energy. And so like with your breakfast or with coffee, if you just skim it, it gives you a good sense of like what's going on and what to keep in touch of.
I guess I can go. My favorite podcast, which talks a lot about energy but isn't energy specifically, is the Economist Intelligence. And it's from The Economist. It talks about the news and world affairs, but because energy is such a big theme in sort of the world right now, it's always talking about energy, and sort of it really connects energy to sort of the geopolitics and what's going on in the world like really well, I think. In terms of the job board question, I don't think of one specifically, but along the similar lines, I'd say like, the board of advisors for Irving or the Dartmouth Alumni Network, like just looking at what people do in the alumni network is I feel like is the best way to start, because then you can speak to those people. The Dartmouth Alumni Network is so amazing. So those people are doing, and speak to them and get a sense of what's out there and how those people got there.
I'll come with a throwback, the Energy Gang, which now has changed into, I think, the Catalyst. That's probably my favorite, along with my climate journey. So you got that on the nail on the head there. It's pretty good too. And then job boards or just other, mediums. Climate Tech VC usually has a pretty good grasp of like different companies that are coming up and finding different spaces. A lot of times startups are like, they don't have a lot of money to spend on marketing or advertising for places. So finding some sort of form within venture capital, they usually like are able to funnel all of the companies and put it into one place. So that's what I'd say. Oh, there's also another Goldman Sachs, I think, series sometimes on energy. I think Matibi sent me a while back that I come back to when they have a special.
Yeah, climate-based is a very big aggregator of climate-related jobs. I'd highly recommend looking into climate-based, and they have a newsletter. So as new jobs are posted, they'll highlight them. Greentown Labs is based in Boston. They're an incubator for climate companies, and they post jobs for all of the companies that they've incubated or are currently incubating. Any follow-up questions from the Irving room on this topic?
Any not follow-up questions from the Irving room on any of these topics? We're at 7:30 here, so this would be a good moment if you've got like, hey guys, this is awesome, but I'd really like to hear about X. What would X be?
Maybe like, sorry, my voice. If you guys could share about how you landed your first job out of college, that might be helpful.
Yeah, like, was it a complete accident? Did you do a really careful planning process and know exactly what you wanted? I think that's a great question, Kate.
Can launch us off. So I did what TV said, and I went to the sustainability office and I said, can I see, this was kind of pre like LinkedIn really being big, I think. And I was like, there was a directory of alumni, and I had an internship in renewable energy credit trading. And so I had a little bit of background in that. And there happened to be a Dartmouth CEO. He had started a company called 3 Degrees. He's actually on the board at the Irving Institute, Dan Calafidis. And I just cold called him and ended up, he was growing the environmental markets team. And he was able to put me in touch with the lead of that team. And I had a pretty good interview and ended up getting the job. So just through research through the sustainability office and using my Dartmouth connections and having a little bit of background in what I was pursuing really helped me everything come together. But to get the internship I had, it was through the environmental studies department. It had been posted on like one of their weekly emails, and a Dartmouth 16 said that they were looking for interns at, it's called Carbone. It's a small brokerage firm in New York. And I applied for that and ended up getting it. So just using my Dartmouth connections, but just showing a really strong interest and doing a little bit of research went a long way.
I just want to say, Kate, it was Kate, right? I love that question. I was laughing because my younger sister is a senior at Northwestern, and throughout the year, she's been like asking me similar questions. So I was just laughing at myself. Yeah, I'll echo what Evie said. I think, especially for Dartmouth, the alumni network is huge. I'm thinking about last fall when I was recruiting, and I pretty much only focused on jobs in the climate tech space or the energy industry. And all the offers I got, the ones that like became offers, I'm pretty sure were all ones where there was like some sort of Dartmouth connection. Either the founders, so for the job I work right now, half the founders were Tuck students or undergrads at Dartmouth. Another one, it was like some of the senior directors were Dartmouth. Another one, they just like had an event on campus, and so like they were already interested in Dartmouth. And so while you definitely can like apply for like any job posting online, I would say for your first job, especially where it can be really hard to find your first job because you have no work experience, unless you're coming back from an internship, like connecting with people, I think is the best way. And when you connect with them, like focus on learning about what they do and like whether it actually interests you, as opposed to trying to like get a connection, get a referral, get that job. If you focus on like learning and like show real interest in what they do, then a referral or like a job is gonna come through naturally from that. So definitely when it comes to like work and career, I realized like people is always more important than the work itself. But not always, but I think the point is clear.
So I'm happy to go. So for me, although like I ended up at somewhere, some Goldman Sachs, where sort of people have like a set way to do it. I spent the whole of my sophomore year thinking that, oh my God, what I want to work in energy, but what the hell, like in energy, do I want to do? And I spoke to so many different people from so many different places. And I was trying to sort of find an excuse not to do the conventional recruiting and not to go to sort of a bulge bracket type of place. And I did sort of some cool internship at this energy startup in London. But I ultimately got to a place where like, okay, to have a really cool job in energy, I think I need to get some sort of training. And the problem is I wasn't really that interested in finance. I didn't go to DIP or like doing technical stuff. So I basically knew that I wasn't gonna do well on the technical basis. So I needed alumni help as much as possible through the recruiting process. And I spoke to a lot of alumni in the energy space who could, I don't know, sort of help me through the recruiting process and, you know, sponsor my application when I finally decided to do it. And then, you know, I ultimately got an internship, which led to the job, but finding that internship was sort of the most important part. And I think it's important to the extent to which you can get internship experience is, you know, is really important because that can help you decide whether or not something is, you know, is for you.
I'll go next and follow up with what Matibi said, just with that finding internships, I found like harder than finding a job. There's a lot of demand and seemingly like less supply. So go easy on yourself. And my advice for internships is also that like you don't have to look at the biggest, most glamorous companies. I went local in my home state of Vermont and worked for a climate nonprofit there that allowed me to basically pick a topic within the Vermont climate space that would like further Vermont's climate goals in like an area of research that wasn't getting enough attention. And it was really transformative. So even if like at first I didn't think, or I kind of wanted like a bigger, more prestigious internship, it ended up working out. So that is my advice for internships. And then my first job, I actually got through handshake resume drops, which I did not expect to really follow that formal of a process. But I wasn't really sure which sector of like energy policy I wanted to go into. So I settled with consulting as a way to like work in a bunch of different areas and kind of figure out my niche along the way. And then chose this job just because I had a really fun time in the interview, which is kind of rare, I think. I just connected with the other analysts and the other people I talked to, and it just felt like a good fit. So yeah, that's how it worked out for me.
Yeah, I pretty much echo what everyone has said before. I still remember actually when Ellie got her job, we were like walking away from the Irving Institute when it was in the dead of winter, like being built. Yeah, I would say try to find things you're passionate about. It is like tough, so don't be too hard on yourself. Like there's been a lot of jobs I was really interested in and didn't get, or like never heard back from people, but things end up working out in the end. So you just like have faith, and talk to as many people as you can just to see like what their daily life would be like, and trying it out. Like even if it's something that you don't really enjoy doing as an internship or even as a job, there's always something to get out of it and information to learn and skills and people that you'll ultimately connect with to get to something more you like.
One thing I quickly add, and just sort of maybe put what I said more simply, like find an alumni does something as close to your dream job as possible. Try and connect with that alumni. And if they're doing something that is really close to what your dream job is, and it's sort of interesting and maybe in the energy space, you'll be able to have an interesting conversation with them. And then and then ask them, where did you start your career? And do you have any advice for how I can start mine? And if you sort of listen to them and you sort of, are persistent with that, I promise you, you'll sort of make some progress.
Yeah, I'll also just say that like I didn't end up getting a job through the networking process, but I found that like talking through my interests with people and learning from them like really helped me kind of discover it for myself and then be able to communicate that in an interview setting. So that was really helpful for getting a job indirectly, kind of.
And one thing I will add is when you're talking to alumni, I found that the younger alumni in like their 20s or late 20s tend to be more, I mean, everyone's enthusiastic, but I think the younger alumni who maybe are more like entry level or have a couple years of experience, are more enthusiastic and remember what it was like to be an undergrad more. So sometimes they have more, what I found to be more relatable advice, as opposed to like, some 60-year-old who means well, but it's harder to relate. No offense to 60-year-olds.
Hey.
One quick thing I want to add is like, I personally didn't get much useful help from the Career Center just in my own like pursuit, but I found that talking to people at the Irving Institute, big plug here, was like really good in preparing me for these conversations with alumni. So I would highly recommend that everyone who's thinking about reaching out to alumni just like goes, fill up Angus's calendar, Amanda's calendar, and ask them like, how should I approach these conversations? Because I think the idea of this whole like networking thing can be pretty hard to jump into if you haven't like started before, and if you're going from classes daily into like starting to have conversations with these people who are 2, 5, 10, 15 years out, like that can be kind of scary. So maybe some of you are already pro networkers, but I know for me, like having kind of a safety net to like say, I don't know what to ask these adults working in climate in the Irving Institute staff was really helpful for me. So I would definitely recommend that.
That's big facts. That's big facts. And ask them to make the introduction too, because they know so many cool like alumni.
And so I help out with internships here at the Irving Institute. So if any of y'all have any questions, I'm the person for y'all to reach out to. Just send me an email and I'll find the time to meet with y'all. We can chat about, career journey questions, some networking, tips and stuff like that. So please never hesitate to reach out.
Yeah, this is actually all a plug just for Angus.
Yeah. I have too much time in my schedule these days. That's not true.
And then we can move on. So let me know if we need to, Jordan. But one last thought, since you mentioned the Career Center, there's one for like the undergrads, which I think is like on Main Street. And there's one at Thayer, which is technically for engineering students, but I'm pretty sure anyone can use it. And I will say, I will echo that they are sometimes not, I think they are really good at certain aspects. And so I would encourage you to use them for things like resume reviews, like mock interviews, like mock case studies. They're really helpful with that. So definitely still a space for those resources.
Yeah, definitely agree. Career Services Office is great for certain things. All right, so I just want to make sure, like, we don't have too much time here, 15 minutes. Let's see if there's any questions, whether it be in the audience live or online, before we move on to some other questions here. There's a question from Sophie. If anyone, maybe like 1 or 2 people who took EMVS 12 on the panel, did you find that it was relatable to your current career, the project in EMVS 12?
I can do it, and I have sort of a funny-ish anecdote. So I did a project on solar mini-grids in sub-Saharan Africa. I really loved it. It was such an interesting project. And I spoke to sort of real people in finance, again, including Jordan, spoke to him. But I remember sort of when I finished it, I was in South Africa that following summer. And I went to the energy agency run by the government and said, hey, I've been doing this recent project. This is my thoughts. Do you guys have any internships? And they basically turned around and like, who the hell is this kid? Like thinks from a Ivy League can work here, go away. Like didn't give me any time. They're like, go get trained or, go get trained and then come back to us. And it was sort of that conversation that sort of set up, my whole trying to figure out how I can work on the solar mini grid projects. And this past December, I was in South Africa and I'm on a deal sort of financing a solar mini grid project in South Africa. So
You showed them OTB. You showed them.
I'll say my project was not related at all. I did like a project on, I believe it was right, electrifying the fleet, like the bus fleet for a local school system, I want to say in Vermont. Nonetheless, it was super informative because I guess from like a corporate lens or just a lens in particular, like an overall, a lot of people are electrifying fleets. I'm sure you can talk more about that, but it's like probably the top 3 trend in the US right now and in the world.
I was on the same project as MoTV, and I don't work on solar mini grids in South Africa anymore, but I have done a project on like rate making to encourage microgrids in California. And so it's interesting how in that project I was focusing on like the financing side, how you can encourage it through like the private sector. And now I'm kind of focused on the public sector and how to encourage them through how you design rates and who pays for what. So, and I mean, eventually it all needs to happen in tandem, but it is cool thinking back to that first experience.
Great. Any questions in the Irving room?
What have you not heard about yet that you're interested in? We're wondering about.
I'm interested on your experiences, like now that you're at your first jobs, how you've been navigating and transitioning to the workforce versus college, and where you kind of see your career going from here.
I think Jordan should answer that.
I'm a moderator. You first.
I'm happy to go. What I would say is, I think when you're in college and you're taking classes that you're interested in, it's like really like an amazing sort of special time where you sort of get to direct what you're studying, what you're focusing on. Problem, sort of, when you get into work, you have much less control over that. You're sort of getting told what to do, and people are less interested about energy and more sort of interested in, whatever the firm, whatever the company sort of is doing. And it's sort of it's hard, I find it hard at times. I'm really passionate about energy, but I'm, doing this sort of something that's completely un-energy related and working with someone that doesn't give it, that, really doesn't care about energy or sustainability. I find it difficult. But I sort of, how I get through it is I think, okay, I'm learning sort of skills. It's nice to, be earning money and sort of have some independence. Not be sort of dependent on my parents, but it's different from school. That's for sure.
Yeah, I'll add to that. Like I would say finding like a job, and that kind of continues like even when you have a job. There's always this saying like the best time to find a job is when you have one, which I agree with. But there's definitely like a range, I would say, of what you're told to do and like kind of free reign to do whatever. Even recently I was talking to a lot of people that work in startups, and there's been one person told me the other day that for months he gets to work on whatever he wants to work on, but there's no, like, he's his own best, agent in doing that. Whereas it could be on the opposite side where you're told every waking minute, what you wanted, what you should be doing. So I would say, it's not the end of the world if you fall somewhere on either end, but to understand like the pluses and minuses of each, and where you kind of best fit in. Yeah. I'll stop there.
I could jump in. I feel like one of the biggest lessons I've learned over the past 4 years is that you are your biggest advocate. And so when people tell you that you've done a good job, like record exactly what you did and like all of those things. And when people say you need to improve on this, also write those things down. And it really just, I've been working at small companies. And so you kind of have to look out for yourself. And if you want something or you want to go work on a project and they're like, well, what have you done to deserve that? You can have your list of things and say, you know, I really want to pursue this. So let me give this other work to someone else so that I can go do that. And yeah, I would say that's one of the biggest things I've learned. And the other thing is just, you know, when you're in college or like going from high school to college is kind of just the path that you've been told and you should do that. Like once you graduate, you can go down whatever path you want. And that could be setting a goal to go back to school. It could be, you know, in 2 years, I want to be an associate on the team, things like that. But you are definitely in control of your own goal setting. And it's important to reflect and like keep that at the center because it can get away. And then 2 years have gone by and you're like, well, what do I want to do now? So just remembering to like chart a path, and that can always change, but it's helpful to keep that in mind as well.
Yeah, I think those are really good pieces of advice, and I feel like I should have set up a call with you to learn from you as well. But definitely, I think, yeah, I think just like watching out for yourself. One thing I've realized in the past year is like, even though I'm in the exact industry I want to be in, and like pretty much like the exact job I was interested in, there are still like lots of ups and downs, and there are definitely days or weeks where I'm just like, wow, I really like don't like what I'm doing. And then there are those weeks where I'm like, wow, this is like crazy that I can do that. But just realizing that when it comes to the real world and like your first job, especially as an entry-level person, you're not gonna love every aspect of what you do. And if you do, that's freaking amazing. But for the most part, it's going to be like a 50-50, 60-40 split. And just making sure that you're able to like vouch for yourself and like search for the things you really enjoy, whether that's a certain kind of project, a certain team, and then advocating to be involved in more of that. Because if you don't advocate for yourself, your manager or like people are like, no one's gonna do what your professor does and like go out of their way and like, you know, put you in the perfect position. You kind of have to do that for yourself. And then the second thing I think I've learned the past year is that people are really what everything comes down to. I think in college, personally, I sometimes didn't do a great job of putting people over work. And by that, I mean that like in the job, you have to get things done, you have to give outcomes, you have to be productive, but you also making relationships and new friendships as you go. And to keep in mind that these like relationships and friendships you build, in my opinion, are really more important than, you know, getting that project done 100%, like days before the deadline. Because it's the people in your company that you talk to and interact with every day that kind of, you know, make your job happy and help you to the finish line. So cannot emphasize the importance of the people.
Yeah, I would echo what you were saying earlier, Eric, that not everything is super fun in your first job. It can be really hard. Like skill acquisition is hard, which is what I think we're doing at the moment. But you kind of have to grind to like be able to eventually be effective at what you're passionate about. Which is at least what I'm telling myself. So I would just say to like stay the course and yeah, find like the people around you will make it better. My company is like really collegial and fun. So I have a lot of fun at the office too. and it's very collaborative, I'll say. Like college felt very independent. You're graded like by yourself most of the time. But in the workplace, like everything you do is very collaborative, and you're held like accountable to that team. So making yourself like a team player that people like want to work with, whether it's like what you offer to the team through technical skills or like just being like a person people want to interact with. I think like everyone has something to offer to a team. So yeah.
I think one something that I thought of like listening to sort of Ellie speak about sort of her work and her advice. It's very important to sort of think, you know, as much as you can, you know, while you still have time as a student, be quite as deliberate as you can about the company that you're going to go work for, what they do, who the people you're going to work with are, because I really think, you know, those things will sort of shape your experience. And you know, it's never too late to start looking or to start having conversations. Which, you know, I really think you should.
Those are all really great and insightful thoughts. Thanks, everyone. So I don't want us to run over time. I think we can fit in this one question that's still lingering in the Q&A. We just do another lightning round. Let's kind of condense it. So if you could go back to freshman year or sophomore year, what is the one thing like you wish you had done to help further your career and where you are now?
I'd probably say doing like my own independent research on like things I'm interested in, just like keeping a log, like keeping a notebook and just doing something. So when I come to conversations, I'm like, hey, I have more discussion rather than asking a bunch of questions about like what they do.
I'd say I wish I kind of dived into more technical classes earlier. At first, I was a bit scared of them, being more of a qualitative thinker. But then once I kind of took the leap and realized it could be helpful to like know a bit about coding and R and stats. I actually really liked the classes, and then was able to, you know, use those skills in internships. So I'd say don't let like any kind of imposter syndrome or fear like slow you down. And yeah, college is a great time to like try things out. And if it brings your GPA down a little, that's really okay in the long run.
I'd say I was maybe a bit too overconfident as a freshman. I was like, oh, this looks interesting. Oh, I know the layup list reviews are not great, but it looks interesting. I'll be fine. I think really listen to what your peers say, and don't take classes just because it's a layup. Like, you know, take something, but you know, have a reason to take the classes that you want to take. I think you'll do well. And don't take, well, I'd say don't take biology. Don't take bio 12.
I think one thing I wish I started doing earlier was just reaching out to alumni in different parts of sustainability. Like I fell into energy and I absolutely love it. And now I'm in transportation and it's great. But I think there are just getting backgrounds and day-to-day functions from people who work in different areas, even if you're not sure where you want to land. I wish I had started doing that earlier so that I had more perspective when I was going into the job search.
It's not your camera. It's
I think as you're fixing the camera,
We're good.
I think they can still see us. My advice would be more of something I wish I didn't do rather than did do. I remember sophomore summer is when the really aggressive banking and consulting recruiting happened. And if you want to do that and you think you'd enjoy that, then by all means, like dive into it, like network your butt off and crush it. But if you don't think that's something you want to do, I would encourage you to not feel peer pressure to do those recruiting things. I think when I was a sophomore, my sophomore summer, I see all my peers doing all this banking, networking, all these consulting things, and I'd be like, oh shoot, I'm behind. But I was never really interested in those industries, and so I wish I didn't spend so much time like doing those events that I really ultimately knew I didn't want to do, and was able just to like be okay with the fact that, you know, that's them, that's their interest, and I will talk to other people in other industries and follow my own timeline. Because I think definitely the peer pressure at Dartmouth, especially where banking consulting is such a big thing, it's very easy to feel like you have to be involved. Yeah.
All great stuff. I totally agree with what everyone said. All right, well, we're out of time here, but I feel like I can probably speak for everyone on the panel in saying that you should reach out to us if you have follow-up questions and you want to talk and learn more. I am always happy to talk to people who are interested in climate. So yeah, I'm going to say that everyone else on the panel is too. Thank you so much, Irving Institute, Amanda, Angus, for putting this together and letting us share some of our experiences. And thank you everyone who came. I think you're way ahead of the curve by wanting to learn about this stuff now. So great job. Kudos.
Jordan, Ellie, Evie, Motibi, Eric, Max, thank you so much. I really look forward to seeing all of the people who are in the room now back in 4 or 5 years to tell your stories. Thanks everybody for being willing for folks to reach out and contact you, because I think that's really, it's one thing to sit on the internet and hunt and hunt and hunt. It's another thing to have a real live human, right, who can say this is what it was like for me, and they give you the straight scoop, right? So thank you for being candid and you know, flagging, you know, I think some really key learning messages, right? Some really key strategies here for how to think about this this next stage that folks are heading into. Have a great night, y'all. I do want to remind the folks who are in the room, this is not the end of the activities, the cool activities happening this week. So tomorrow night, 5:30, speculative fiction. If you don't know about it and you want to know about it, ask me, ask Kate, ask Angus, because you're really interested, right? And you're coming? No, you're not? Oh, I'm sorry. Don't ask Kate, ask me or ask Angus. Okay, my bad. And then Thursday night, Who Owns the Wind? David McDermott Hughes talking at 4:30 about some very interesting anthropological research he's doing in the state of New Hampshire. And really thinking about who gets to make decisions about energy resources and systems. So we look forward to seeing all of you wonderful folks when you come back through Hanover, and have a good rest of your night. Thanks, everybody. Great to see you. Take care.
Thank you.